A young woman goes out to a bar with her friend on a warm Saturday night in Oregon. By the next morning, her family and friends lose all contact with her with no signs of where she could possibly be. As her loved ones launch a massive search effort to locate her, a total stranger in a different city walks into a police station with a shocking revelation that would lead detectives on a multi-state manhunt, tracking an armed killer with a kidnapped victim who's desperate to keep his freedom. This is the story of Kaylee Sawyer. Oregon is one of the largest states in the U.S., with some of the most breathtaking scenery you can find anywhere in the world. With everything from vast desert, natural forests, lakes, and colossal mountains, Oregon attracts nature lovers from far and wide who come to experience its magnificent beauty. In 2016, Oregon was also home to a 23-year-old woman by the name of Kaylee Sawyer. Kaylee was born and raised in Bend, a small city located right in the center of the state, on the slopes of the scenic Cascade Range. Described by her friends and family as smart, funny, and bubbly, Kaylee was a talented cheerleader who loved to spend her time outdoors embracing the beautiful nature surrounding her. She was stunning, with a personality to match, and was loved by everyone who got to know her. Despite her parents being divorced, she remained close with them both and had good relationships with her step-parents. Having worked as a dental assistant for 2 years, Kaylee was making plans to enroll in college and become a dentist. She lived with her longtime boyfriend Cameron, and the two of them were getting ready to get engaged and eventually married and start a family of their own. Kaylee showed promise and had her whole life ahead of her. Nobody who knew her ever expected that she would be at the center of a tragic series of events that would start to unfold on an unforgettable summer night in the small town of Bend. Saturday, July 23, 2016. Kaylee's friend and mentor, Lisa Castro, had a wedding coming up and had invited Kaylee to her bachelorette party that night. Kaylee already told her that she couldn't go, but sent her a text message at the last minute, letting her know that she was going to make it. She knew she'd be drinking that night and drove to her friend's house to park her car there and catch a ride to the party. They all had drinks and danced for hours as they celebrated Lisa's upcoming wedding. After a while, when the party started to wind down, Kaylee and her friend decided to leave and went to a bar downtown together. Kaylee had no idea that she was just minutes away from reaching the end of her life. The next morning, on Sunday, July 24th, both of Kaylee's parents woke up to text messages from Kaylee's boyfriend Cameron. He asked them if they knew where she was and seemed worried. They didn't. Cameron told them that he hasn't heard from her since the night before and was reaching out to everyone trying to find out where she was. When he realized that nobody had heard from her, Cameron called the police.
Dispatch, how can I help you? Hello?
Hi. I'm not sure if this is quite the right number to call. Last night I got home from the bars with my girlfriend. She got upset at me and ran off. And I chased her and wasn't able to find her, and I still haven't heard from her. Her phone's off. I called all her family and they haven't heard from her, so I'm wondering what you recommend I do.
We can put in a call and we can have officers and deputies look for her.
Okay.
Cameron was the last person known to have seen Kaylee and told his story to the police. Just after 10:30 p.m. the night before, he received a text message from a friend of his who happened to be at the same bar Kaylee went to after leaving the party. He told Cameron that he'd just seen her dancing with another man. Just after midnight, Kaylee called Cameron asking him to come pick her up from the bar. After hanging up with him, she texted his friend and apologized for dancing with the other man and putting him in an awkward position. When Cameron arrived at the bar, Kaylee jumped into his car and right away, the couple had an argument that continued all the way home. As they pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, the fight escalated and Kaylee started to cry. After parking the car, Cameron says he stepped out and told her to cool off for a bit while he headed up to their apartment. After 10 minutes, he came back out to make amends with Kaylee and bring her inside, but as he approached the car, he realized that she was not in it. He walked around the parking lot looking for her, but Kaylee was nowhere in sight. He texted her saying, "Where are you? Please come home and talk to me. At least you're being unfair." Kaylee responded, "Are you kidding? What a joke. I'm sorry I'm not good enough for you." Cameron texted her back saying, "Kaylee, please just come home to be with me. I don't want to play this game. I'll start searching, but please help me out." Kaylee responded, "My phone's about to die." Cameron got back in his car and started driving through the neighborhood, but couldn't find Kaylee anywhere. He sent her another text message saying, "Please don't do this to me. I apologize for being upset when I picked you up. I just drove up and down College Way really slow. I didn't see you and I don't know where else to go. Just come back." Kaylee texted him back saying, "Are you kidding? Because that's bullshit. Goodbye, phone off." That was the last that anyone had heard from Kaylee. Cameron tells police he figured that she probably went to her friend's house where she parked her car and that he decided to go home. They lived in a very safe neighborhood and he wasn't too worried for her. He went to bed that night thinking that she just needed some time to sober up and would eventually show up at their apartment, but she never did. When he woke up the next morning, she still wasn't home and hadn't reached out to him. He tried calling her, but his call went straight to voicemail. Cameron drove to Kaylee's friend's house and saw that her car was still parked outside. When he asked her friend about her, she said that she hadn't heard from Kaylee since she left the bar the night before, and that's when he started calling her friends and family. Kaylee's parents said that it was normal for her to take off and go for a walk when she got upset, but she always returned home as soon as she calmed down. Cameron's story didn't sit well with Kaylee's mother, and she asked the police to take a closer look at him. They did just that, but his story checked out and he seemed just as worried about Kaylee as everyone else was. Kaylee's family and friends got to work right away and spread the word of her disappearance around the community. By the end of the day, police tracked down the man she was seen dancing with at the bar and questioned him, but he didn't have any information to add. It was getting late, and there was still no sign of Kaylee. July 25th, 2016 was a Monday, and Kaylee had been missing since Saturday night. She was due to start work at 9 a.m. that morning, and her father drove to her job holding on to hope that he'd find her there. He eagerly walked into the dental office and scanned the room looking for Kaylee, but instead, he saw the worried looks on each of her coworkers, hoping to hear that she was found. This was the first time that Kaylee took a leave from work without informing anyone, and it left no doubt in anyone's mind that something was wrong. Kaylee's loved ones quickly ramped up their efforts and went out handing out missing posters and going door to door, asking local residents to be on the lookout for her. Just before noon that same morning, law enforcement would unexpectedly get a major breakthrough in the case. In the nearby city of Redmond, a woman walked into her local police station and asked to speak with a supervisor. The woman identified herself as Isabel Lara, a police officer who had joined the Bend Police Department just a year prior. When she told officers what she was there for, she was immediately brought into an interview room where she was questioned.
So could you tell me, and I know that you already went over this, but can you tell me kind of how this whole thing transpired? I guess I would start with Saturday.
Isabel came to report her husband had told her that he committed a serious crime.
Okay. Do you know if he took a lunch that day or contacted you any time during his work day?
Isabel's husband was identified as 31-year-old Edwin Lara. Edwin had a degree in criminal justice and was training to become a police officer. He also worked as a security officer at Central Oregon Community College, just a few-minute walk from Kaylee's apartment. His work schedule varied from day to day, but on this last Saturday, he started his shift at 3 p.m. and finished sometime after midnight. Isabel says that she went to bed before he came home that night, and when she woke up the next morning, she noticed that he was acting strange.
At church, he was just very quiet, very withdrawn. He would usually grab my hand or something. He wasn't doing that. So when we get out of church, I asked him, "What's wrong with you? What's going on?" And I told him, we've been together for a very long time. I know something's up.
Could you get some Kleenex? Yeah.
She says that they went to watch a movie together later that evening, then went home and went to bed. When they woke up the next morning, just hours before the interview, Edwin finally told her what's been bothering him the whole time.
So he comes out of the room, and his eyes were all teary. That's what I'm like, "What happened? Tell me what happened. What's wrong?" So he sits on the sofa. I turn off the TV. And then he just says that. He's like, I kill a woman, that's what he said. And I'm like, what do you mean? Then he's like, I hit her with the car.
And did he tell you which car?
He said the security, the job, the car that they used at the job.
And what did you say to that?
So I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you hit her? And he's like, yeah, I hit her and I panic. And I'm like, what do you mean by you hit her panicking? What did you do? So you hit her with the car. That's an accident.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean you panic? What do you mean?
And what did he say?
He just kept saying I panic, and at that point he's already, like, he got up and he's already, like, going into the room and walking back and forth. And I'm not really quite understanding what he's telling me.
Edwin then grabbed Isabel's gun and started rushing out of the house, but just before he walked out, he made one more shocking comment to his wife.
And then he just kept saying, I need to go. And then right before he left, he's like, there's her stuff in the shed. And I think it's because I kept telling him, it doesn't make sense. It's like, you're lying to me. It's not. So I feel like he told me that. So I could go see it and say, oh, it is true.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't making sense to me, and I think he was seeing that, like, I wasn't believing it, like, it felt like a movie, like, it wasn't making any sense to me. But when I saw the stuff, I'm like, oh, fuck.
While detectives continue questioning Isabel, other officers locate the patrol car that Edwin said he hit Kaylee with, but found no damages on it. They did, however, find one of the missing posters Kaylee's family had been handing out, taped to the back window. A search warrant was later obtained, and a team of detectives were sent to Edwin and Isabel's house. As they opened the shed in the backyard, they found a trash bag stuffed inside. In the bag were Kaylee's green purse, covered in blood, along with her keys, her passport, and the shoes she had on the night she went missing. At the bottom of the bag, they found clumps of blonde hair, along with a rock, that were both covered in blood. This was no accident. Kaylee's missing persons case was now a homicide investigation, and police have an armed killer on the loose who's desperately trying to escape. Redmond PD issued a BOLO and alerted police departments in surrounding cities. A large-scale manhunt was now underway to track down Edwin, who by this point was just getting started with his crime spree. At around 9 p.m. that same evening, 19-year-old Andrea Mays had just wrapped up a double shift at her retail job at a Ross department store located in Salem, Oregon, 230 miles away from Bend. She got in her car, and as she let her engine warm up, she took a selfie, and just as she uploaded it to her social media, she heard a noise from her passenger side. When she looked up, Andrea found herself looking straight down the barrel of a gun. Edwin had just entered the car with a pistol pointed at her. He told her that he'd just committed a murder and ordered her to start driving and head to California. At first, Andrea thought that this was a prank, but when she saw the look in Edwin's eyes, she quickly realized that he wasn't joking. As they drove down the highway, Edwin shared details about the murder and tried making small talk with Andrea, but she didn't engage with him and tried her best to not show him any fear. After driving for 3 hours, Edwin ordered her to pull over and park by a motel. He told her they were spending the night there and that he wouldn't hesitate to shoot her if she tried to escape or alert anyone that she's been kidnapped. Andrea was forced to pose as Edwin's girlfriend as he checked them into a room, and the motel staff didn't notice anything was off. When they entered the room, Edwin handcuffed Andrea to the bathroom door while he took a shower. When he finished, he told her it was her turn and tried making her shower in front of him, but she refused. Andrea was then handcuffed to the bed and was forced to take sleeping pills. After managing to stay awake for a while, she started getting sleepy and was worried that she'd be assaulted. Just then, her phone alarm went off, startling Edwin, and he asked her what that was. Thinking quickly, Andrea told him that it was a reminder to take her daily medication for an STD, hoping that this would keep him away from her. She was right. Edwin didn't come near her all night long, but despite this, she still couldn't sleep. A short while later, Edwin's phone rang and he picked it up, not saying anything. The person on the other end told him that police were looking for him and that he should turn himself in. Edwin quickly hung up the phone and rushed Andrea out of the room and back into her car. This time, Edwin was driving. By the early morning hours of July 26th, they reached Northern California when Andrea's car started to stall. Edwin pulled over and ran into the parking lot of a motel where he tried to carjack a man sitting in his car. The man started panicking, and when he screamed for help, Edwin fired his gun at him.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, it's Karen at CHP.
Hi.
Hey, I just transferred a call to medical at Super 8 Motel. The manager there said there's a gentleman who says he got shot in the stomach, and he's laying down in room 108.
108. All right, Karen, I'll get the info of the guys.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
He then grabbed Andrea and dragged her to a nearby gas station, where he found an elderly woman sitting in her car with her 2 teenage grandchildren. He pointed his gun at the older boy and told him to start driving. Edwin now had Andrea hostage, along with the woman and her 2 grandchildren. Just a few miles down, Edwin dropped off the family on the side of a road and drove off with Andrea. The family immediately called 911 and told them what had just happened. While local police were responding to the call, Edwin took Andrea's phone and started recording a bizarre video.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say that I apologize for everything I've done. Most likely I'm going to get caught. And sorry about that girl. In Central Oregon. And I also want to let family members, Andrea, that she's fine and she will be fine because so far she's been doing what I've been told her to do. You know, and if you guys are wondering if I have done dirty things to her, no. All right, I'm not that kind of guy. You know, I used to kill that other girl, you know, and I regret it. I regret killing her. You know, she kept screaming and I was following her forever. So, you know, like I say, she's still fine. We're driving and she'll be home pretty soon. I'm sorry to her grandma and her family members, to her boyfriend. You know, I'm sorry. Everything that I caused. Okay, and you'll see her pretty soon. Okay, tell the cops that not to shoot us, because if they shoot us, then that's not my fault. Okay, but sorry everybody. Bye.
He then handed Andrea's phone back to her and told her to post it on her Facebook with the title, "Murderer on the Loose." This would be the first of many instances that he'd show his interest in wanting to get exposure on the news. Edwin then called his family telling them what was happening. After hanging up with them, he received a call from his wife, Isabel, who convinced him to turn himself in. Just as he hung up the call with her, a California patrol officer clocked Edwin speeding on the highway and pursued him, completely unaware of who he was or what was going on. As Edwin fled the police, he placed a call to 911.
911 emergency reporting.
Yes, hi. This is Edwin Lara, and I'm the guy on Interstate 5, going at high speed. I know you guys have the chopper on me already.
Yeah.
And, I just want to say I am going to turn myself in. So, you know, I am wanted for murder in the state of Oregon.
Okay. Edwin, where are you at right now?
I have no idea.
Are you by yourself or?
No, I have someone with me. I kidnapped her in Oregon. She's innocent. Her name is Andrea. I'll let her give her last name so you can call her family, okay?
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. What's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea, what's your last name?
Maes, M-A-E-S.
Okay, are you hurt at all, Andrea?
No.
No? Okay. Do you know where you are? Let me talk to Edwin again.
But I want to ask you a favor.
Uh-huh.
So I have asthma.
You have asthma? Okay.
Yeah, so you tell them not to be too rough on me because, I can barely breathe right now.
Okay. The officer sees you, and are you able to safely stop?
Yeah, I can stop, but not right now. I just don't want to stop right here in the middle of the road, putting myself in danger and putting everybody else in danger, more in danger, I guess.
They won't. They're aware. I'll let them know they won't. But if you can stop safely, they just don't want you to run. They think you're trying to run or anything.
Okay.
Edwin, do you have any weapons with you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do have a gun on me. I am not going to flash the gun, so you tell them not to shoot me.
Okay.
No, I don't want to die.
Okay, you stick by your word, though. I'll let them know.
Yeah, I'm going to let them know. Don't hurt Andrea. She's a nice girl. Don't hurt her. I'm actually calling my family just to say bye to them. So once I'm done calling all my family, then I'll turn myself in.
After calling his family, Edwin pulled over. Andrea was also placed under arrest, but was later released when police confirmed that she was held hostage. Edwin was brought in for an interrogation. The #1 priority for police right now is to locate Kaylee's remains.
We have not been able to find Kaylee's body. Can you please help me find her body immediately before we start talking about anything else? Because I don't think you're a bad guy, right? I think that things have spun completely out of control, sir. Sir, am I right? Okay. But that being said, from your training and your education that we have a massive load of resources right now dedicated to one thing, and that's to serve the victim's family, okay? And they need that, and they need that right now. And so I need you to remember that it doesn't matter so much about what happened, it's what you do now.
Yeah, and you know this, man.
Matt wants to do a map.
As officers are sent to retrieve Kaylee's remains, detectives continue interrogating Edwin. He had initially told his wife Isabel that he accidentally killed Kaylee with his patrol car and repeats the story to detectives.
What happened, man? What happened? Like the straight up, what happened?
So I was putting the signs up where there was an event going on.
It's a college.
Cyclist event or whatever. I was in a hurry because I wanted to get out of it. And I was going to turn south on College Way on the D4 lot. So I was going to turn south on the do not enter area there. And I didn't see her. She was wearing all black. So I was in a hurry, so it was my fault. And I wasn't expecting anybody, at that time of night. So I just turned and I didn't hit her that hard. I just bumped her with the patrol car, bumped her with the front rack. And she fell down. And at first I thought, first thing I was, I killed her, but I didn't hit her that hard. So I got off the car and she was really drunk. And then she looks at me and then she started screaming. So I panicked and I just grabbed her by the throat.
Edwin goes on to detail how he disposed of her body and then cleaned the blood that was left behind in his car and on his clothes. Detectives know that he's lying since there were no signs of an accident on the car or anywhere on the road. He then switches his story and says that he picked her up thinking she was a prostitute.
So when I picked her up, because usually when we help someone, we call her on the radio.
Did you call her on the radio?
No, because I thought she was over. And I just warned.
That's why you didn't call on the radio.
That's why I didn't call her on the radio. And when I realized she wasn't a hooker, I felt discovered. Oh, crap. Now she's gonna go tell the whole world that I was looking for sex.
Oh, wow, how weird would that be for a dude to be looking for sex? See what I'm saying? And that's not that bad.
Dudes look for sex.
Dudes look for sex.
Well, yeah, but not a security guard that is supposed to protect.
I think you just said, man.
Police aren't buying this story either.
Why would you ask for her purse? What was in your head that made you want her purse?
Because, you know...
Just in case she had a gun? She could defend herself?
She was going to use her phone.
To call 911? Call for help?
So, but listen to this. According to your story, this is where it does not make sense. If your intent isn't already there to do some kind of harm or some kind of evil to her, some friggin' evil that's there, bro, it's there. You just gotta face it down, man. You can't cower away from it. You face that damn thing down right now. If you know the only way, if you don't have intent in her head, your thought is, I gotta keep that phone away from her because she's gonna call from help before anything bad's even happened. You've already made a decision. Am I right or am I wrong? Help me.
So I made the decision at that time to silence her.
To kill her. Let's be real. When you say silence her, you mean kill her. Is that correct?
Detectives appeal to his faith and urge Edwin to do the right thing by coming clean.
Does God still love you? Will he forgive you? Will he bring you back into his heart? Will he? Questions you have to answer for yourself. But the truth of the matter is that her blood cries out, man. That her life is gone. It will never be replaced. The truth of the fact is this: what you mistook for a hooker was an absolute angel, was the apple of her mom and dad's eye, was the breath that they breathed, that they spent and cultivated all their life raising and growing. And she is gone forever with your semen all over her. That's the truth, man. Okay? It's brutal. It's hard to say. It's hard to sit in here. But you got to face it before you can look your God in the eye and ask for that forgiveness and be able to receive it.
Edwin eventually confesses and tells them what actually happened that night. While on patrol that Saturday night, he spotted Kaylee walking alone near the college campus and stopped to offer her a ride back to her apartment. It was common practice for campus patrol to drop students off home at night, but Kaylee refused to get in the car with him. When Edwin stepped out of his car and approached Kaylee, she started to scream.
So I panicked and I just grabbed her by the throat and told her, shut up. And then I was panicking, I didn't know what to do. She already seen me, she saw my face.
He says that once she was unconscious, he took her phone, then put her in his back seat, which had a security cage and child locks on both doors. Edwin then drove to a secluded parking lot on the college campus, where Kaylee regained consciousness and desperately tried to escape.
So I opened the door, and that's when she came back. She started screaming again. So I grabbed the chokehold, and I was telling her, shut up. She was just struggling to scream. So I threw her down and I hit over the rock on the head.
As Kaylee lay dying, Edwin has his way with her and assaults her before dragging her behind a tree where he dealt the final blow to her head with a boulder, ending her life.
And that's when I think she died because I heard her breathing her last breath.
Edwin then fled the scene, taking with him the first rock he used and clumps of hair from her head as souvenirs. When Kaylee's family later asked to identify her body, they were told that she was unidentifiable. After 6 hours of interrogation, officers asked Edwin if he'd like to call anyone, and he asked if he could call the media, once again showing his interest in the news coverage he was about to have. Edwin Lara was arrested for multiple charges, including kidnapping, carjacking, robbery, and aggravated murder, and was held without bail. Prosecutors sought the death penalty in what seemed to be an open and shut case, but Edwin's defense would later find a 5-second audio clip from the day of his arrest that put the whole case in jeopardy.
My lawyer, I'm okay? No, it's your regular request a lawyer. Okay. So when you get your phone calls, you can request a lawyer.
Edwin's defense argued that he had invoked his right to counsel and shouldn't have been asked any more questions until he was able to consult with a lawyer. The judge agreed and ruled that the confession was inadmissible. All 6 hours of Edwin's detailed confession were tossed out of the trial. There was still a lot of compelling evidence, including his wife's interview and his DNA that was found at the crime scene. The death penalty seemed less likely, but the state pushed forward with it anyway. Edwin's counsel proposed an offer to the prosecution. He would spare Kaylee's family a long legal battle that could last many years and would plead guilty if they agreed to him serving a life sentence instead of the death penalty. Kaylee's family reluctantly agreed, and Edwin's sentencing was scheduled for January of 2018. At his sentencing, Edwin was allowed to address the court and had one more stunt for the media.
Someday I would like to speak to whoever's willing to listen. God Almighty, who art in heaven, all that will hear tonight, I'll ask you, please, heal the hearts, all those broken hearts of this community.
He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In April of 2019, he faced a federal judge for crossing state lines with his kidnap victim, Andrea Mays, and was handed another sentence of life in prison without parole. Edwin currently resides in the Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution in Oregon. Isabel Lara faced public backlash for waiting up to 2 hours before reporting her husband to the police. Had she called 911 immediately after he confessed to her, it's likely that Edwin would have been caught before he had a chance to go on the run and victimize the people he kidnapped and shot. The man who Edwin shot at the motel parking lot was rushed to a hospital and survived the attack. Isabel divorced her husband a few weeks after his arrest and has since resigned from the police department and left Bend altogether. Kaylee's family filed a lawsuit against Central Oregon Community College and in the process exposed many concerning issues with campus security. Despite not being required to undergo any type of background or psychological checks, the security officers were given uniforms and patrol cars that could easily be mistaken for local police and were allowed to conduct traffic stops, carry out criminal investigations, and even make arrests. Former co-workers of Edwin also revealed disturbing encounters they've had with him, which included being shown inappropriate videos and receiving text messages with photos of dead bodies that he'd found online. One female cadet even testified that Edwin had once pinned her against a wall. The college denied any wrongdoing but settled the case with Kaylee's family for the maximum amount allowed by Oregon law, $2 million. They also changed the appearance of officers' uniforms and patrol cars and have revised their policies to mitigate the risk of similar incidents. Kaylee's family also pushed for a law requiring background checks on security officers, along with other safety checks in the state of Oregon. In 2019, Oregon Governor Kate Brown made it official and signed Kaylee's law, requiring all security officers to undergo background checks and other measures, which aim to prevent future tragedies such as this.